Well, hello. Today I'd like to welcome you to my review of the Adlatus 302. And yes, I am still suffering from my voice. I have suffered with this for about 4 days. But I feel good, I just don't sound good. So, yeah, we're doing this review anyway. So, Adlatus 302. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And if you know anything about Adlatus, I'd love to hear it, because I know nothing. I haven't been able to find anything. So, makes it kind of part of the fun of why I do this. So, let's dive into it. So this is the Adlatus 302. Has ebonite ends, finials, what do you want to call them? Anyway, ebonite. I don't know if they originally meant to be brown, but I think that actually looks rather attractive. The rest of the body is kind of a cellulose. If you look more closely, you can see Adlatus. This isn't a brand that lasted very long. They only made a few models, 302 and FS. I'll get back to the FS. The cap has some nice trim rings. And of course, Adlatus on the... I uncap it. Gold nib. And yes, a bit of branding there. What is interesting about the nib is it's a fine-steno nib. I'll come back to that in a minute. We have a reddish ink window, which you'll be able to see in my photographs of the pen. And it's a piston filler. I am unclear from the information from the seller, and I could find nothing. It's either a 1930s or a 1950s pen. But I will just bring up the steno nib part. So Adlatus didn't last long. Apparently very high quality. I mean, I'm impressed with this. The spiral for the piston inside is actually metal, so that's a good sign. The steno nib, these were soft nibs. It could be used to make carbon copies, apparently. But stenography actually is has a much larger heritage. You may have heard of shorthand. This was symbols used to write down phonics, but very quickly. So you could take dictation back in the days before there were tape recorders and such. You'll still find stenography done in the courts and so on. But anyway, it's a fine steno nib, so it has a little bit of flex to it. I purchased this from myoberpens.com, I'll just admit that. So they replaced the original cork piston, which to me puts it in the 30s, but what do I know? With some rubber O-rings, which I've done on another pen, just not this one. So I really wish I had my voice back, because just hearing my voice is sucking all the excitement out of it for me. And I really like this pen. So to get my excitement back up, I think it's time for us to do a writing sample. So of course, as I write this F-S, fine steno. The ink in it is one I don't use very often, but I don't know why. It's Pelikan. Edelstein, Onyx. And I will say this nib definitely has some feedback. Not scratchy by any means, but definitely has some feedback. Good or bad, I guess that's a matter of preference. Flex, you can already see that it has some. Not a flex nib, but definitely flexible. Oops, sorry, that was totally off screen. I am out of practice doing reviews. I haven't filmed one in a few weeks. And it's a little late. It's about 8 o'clock. Wetness and flow. As far as I can see, the pen has no trouble keeping up. Smear test. Pretty wet. And reverse writing. Not so good. I usually make my little joke about if you're into that kind of thing, but the reason people do reverse writing in the real world is some of them are artists and they just want a finer nib. Some of them are writers and they just kind of want to fine in a something else. But ew, that's just nasty. That's just nasty. We'll do a longer form writing sample with a quote. See if I can lose a few subscribers over that one. Teddy Roosevelt's actually an interesting figure. He was a Republican, but I don't know if many modern Republicans would want to claim him. North Dakota seems desperate to claim him, even though North Dakota conservatism is quite different from his version of being a Republican. I will just add here real quick a world famous... Boy, I sound ineffectual. I'm going to add, a world-famous Pierre Gustafson test. I actually already know this is going to turn out well, because as much feedback as I get from this pen, darn thing writes really well. So maybe it could benefit from some nib smoothing, but by golly, this pen writes great. So that's the Adlatus 302. I like it. One other test I always like to do with these pens. Yeah, that fit right in the pocket. Pretty nice. So, yeah, I'm thrilled with it. I love this pen. Now, has a little more feedback than I like generally. I'm going to work on that. Overall, the nib has the right amount of flex. I think the nib does write very well. I just feel like it has more feedback than a pen should have. I feel like the tines are misaligned. And I don't have my loop over here. Otherwise, I'd show you, but I'm pretty sure they are. But overall, just an interesting pen. And I can't find information about this model or this brand. I found a few other Adlatus pens for sale. I looked on eBay and Etsy and all the others. They're out there. This isn't a fluke. But the brand wasn't around for long. I have, what is his name? I can't remember the guy's name, sorry. But Fountain Pens of the World, that book. Nothing about Adlatus. I can't find much about Adlatus. I found an entry on Fountain Pen Network about Adlatus, but it wasn't even its own thread. It was just a minor entry in a thread about lesser-known German brands. So, I'd love to know more. Now, stenography, I know a little bit about. My mother was actually a secretary. In fact, She became pregnant with me as an excuse to quit her job. Do we say that? In fairness, it was the 1970s, but she had some career options, but when she grew up, women just didn't have as many career options, so she chose to become a secretary, and one of the things she did as a secretary was take dictation, where the boss would spout off and she'd write it down, then she'd go type it up. Well, the way she'd write it down was with shorthand. Now, I don't know any shorthand, so you're going to have to look. I put a link in my video description to one page on shorthand. There's lots out there about shorthand. It's just a way to very quickly write down what people are saying. And apparently the steno nib was part of that. But the description of the pen also talks about carbon copies, which is interesting to me. That was also a thing. I do a lab with my chemistry class that involves carbon paper. And I will tell you, it's not easy to find carbon paper anymore. It's just a different world now. The written word hasn't become less important, but some of the tools used to put words down have changed. Carbon paper is no longer a thing. Stenography and shorthand are no longer a thing. If I were to go, my mother was a high school secretary when she quit to have me. If the principal were to go to our high school secretary where I work right now and say, take dictation, she'd tell him where to stick it. She would too. But she'd be right, because the tools are so much different now for doing that kind of thing. And her job is very different from what my mother would recognize from the early 1970s working in a high school. So I find this pen just a really interesting little piece of history. I wish I knew more about Adlatus. I wish I knew more about stenography. And I don't. I have put off doing a review on this pen for probably 2 years now, just because I kept thinking, I will find more information, and I haven't. So, I feel really awkward closing it with this, but there it is. So if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, should I do videos where I've lost my voice ever again? No! I think I need to get more batch filming done when my voice is recovered, and holy cow, I'm so sick of my voice sounding like this. And I probably have something to say about the pen too. Oh yeah, if you have anything to say about Adlatus or steno nibs or stenography, I'd really welcome that as well. So I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.